In case we have never met, I'm Michael Price, and I want to help you succeed in growing your business.
Welcome, I'm Michael Price, your host.
And I'm Nancy, your co-host.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. It is Monday, February 16th, 2026. Now, typically on a Monday, we like to ease into things. Maybe we start with a philosophical question, or we look at some long-term demographic trends, something to gently wake up the brain. But today,
No.
we do not have that luxury.
No, we really don't. We are staring down the barrel of a deadline that hits literally tomorrow.
Exactly. Tuesday, February 17th. The ground is shifting under the feet of the veteran community in a very real, very legal, and frankly, very confusing way. I was reading through the stack of sources we have for today. We're talking legislative texts fresh from the House Veterans Affairs Committee, court rulings, the Federal Register itself, and I kept getting this sense of whiplash.
It's a perfect word for it. You look at the headlines and it looks like a party. Benefits expanded, cash injections for families, support for the catastrophically disabled.
Right. You see those headlines and you think, wow, the system is working, people are getting help, but then you turn the page. You get into the fine print, the funding mechanisms, the regulatory amendments, and you realize those benefits are being funded by cutting protections for other veterans.
That is a core tension we are dealing with today. It's a phenomenon that one of our industry watchdog sources very bluntly calls the cannibalism of benefits.
That is such a visceral term, cannibalism of benefits. It hits you.
It is, but when you look at the mechanics of what we're about to discuss, it really fits. The system is essentially feeding on itself. To give a vital lifeline to one group of veterans, let's call them Group A, they are carving out pieces of the safety net from Group B.
And at the same time, this isn't just happening in one place.
No, that's the other part of the whiplash. Simultaneously, while that financial trade-off is happening on Congress, the VA itself is making a regulatory move tomorrow that effectively tells the court system, thanks for your opinion, but we're going to do it our way.
So we have a massive amount of ground to cover. We've structured this deep dive into a three-part mission to make sure we don't get lost in the legalese. First, we are going to tear apart the Sherry Bryley and Eric Edmonson Act. We need to know who is getting that extra cash and, more importantly, who is paying for it.
And a little spoiler alert here. If you have a disability rating of 70% or lower, you really need to turn the volume up for that part.
Yeah, that's a big one. Second, we are going to dissect the Ingram versus Collins saga. This is the legal battle over whether the VA rates you based on your disability as it exists naturally or, based on how you act when you're medicated. The court said one thing.
And the VA is saying absolutely not, as of tomorrow.
And finally, we have to look at the bigger picture. When you combine these legislative offsets with these regulatory reversals, what does it mean for the benefit of the doubt rule? Are we seeing a slow erosion of the fundamental philosophy that the tie goes to the veteran?
It's the big question.
And look, I know this can get dense. We're talking about the Code of Federal Regulations, statutory amendments, administrative law. It can be dry stuff on paper. But stick with us. We are going to keep this jargon free. We're going to keep it moving. And we're going to explain exactly why this matters to your wallet and your future.
It matters because this isn't just about money. I mean, it is about money, but it's more about how we define disability in 2026. It's about whether the system is designed to protect you at your worst or penalize you for trying to get better.
So let's dive right into part one, the trade-off. This is the Sherry Bryley and Eric Edmonson Veterans Benefits Expansion Act. Now, if I just read the title of this bill, it sounds fantastic. Benefits expansion, I mean, who could argue with that?
On the surface, it is fantastic. And to be crystal clear, the beneficiaries of this act, the people on the receiving end of the money, are people who genuinely, desperately need support. We aren't talking about people gaming the system. We are talking about the most vulnerable demographics in the veteran community.
Okay, so let's break them down. Who gets the good news here?
First up, we have catastrophically disabled veterans. Now, when we say catastrophically disabled in the context of this bill, we aren't just talking about a high rating like 100% for PTSD or something. We are talking about veterans who are way up on the Special Monthly Compensation Scale, the SMC scale.
Let's pause on SMC for a second because a lot of listeners might know the standard 0 to 100% rating scale, but SMC is like a whole hidden level of the game. It's not something everyone knows about.
It really is. SMC is for veterans who have suffered specific severe losses. We're talking loss of use of limbs, blindness, Or, this is crucial for this bill, the need for aid and attendance.
Aid and attendance. Can you define that for us?
It means these are individuals who cannot perform the basic activities of daily living without help. They need someone to help them dress, bathe, eat, and, just protect them from the normal hazards in their daily environment. They can't be left alone safely.
So these are folks who require regular in-home medical aid just to function. And in 2026, the cost of that kind of care is just astronomical. You're hiring home health aides, nurses, maybe modifying your house. The scattered compensation doesn't even touch it.
It doesn't even come close. So what this act proposes is an additional $10,000 annually for this specific group.
Okay, $10,000 a year.
Right, that breaks down to roughly $850 extra per month.
Which is huge. That's tangible relief.
Yeah.
That pays for a lot of hours of care. That could be the difference between staying at home and going into a facility.
Absolutely. No one is arguing against the necessity of that. It's a lifeline.
Okay, so that's the first group. Who's the second?
The second group benefiting is Gold Star families, specifically those receiving dependency and indemnity compensation, or DIC.
And what's the boost there?
It's a proposed 1% annual increase for the next 5 years.
Now, I can hear a listener saying, 1%, that sounds like pennies. It doesn't sound like a lot on its face.
It sounds small, but the key detail here, the really important part, is that this is on top of the standard CLA, the cost of living adjustment.
Okay, so it's PLA plus 1.
Exactly. So if inflation goes up and CLA is, say, 3%, they get that plus this extra 1%. So they are effectively beating inflation by a point every single year for 5 years.
And that compounds. That's not insignificant over time.
It does compound, and it impacts a lot of people. The sources say over 500,000 surviving families. So again, on its face, this is a compassionate, necessary piece of legislation advancing out of the House Veterans Affairs Committee. It looks like a pure win.
Okay, so we have the good news.
Right.
We have the compassion. But here comes the deep dive turn. We know that in Washington, money doesn't appear out of thin air. There is no magic money tree. You don't just find, $5 billion to $7 billion in the couch cushions at the Capitol building?
No, you do not. And under the pay-go rules, pay as you go, if you want to spend $1, you have to save $1 somewhere else or raise $1 in taxes that has to be offset.
So where is this $5 to $7 billion coming from? Did they tax the wealthy? Did they, cut a defense program?
They did not. They didn't look outside the veteran ecosystem at all. They looked inside. The money is coming directly from other disabled veterans.
From who specifically?
Specifically from veterans with disability ratings of 70% or lower.
This is that cannibalism concept you brought up at the top, taking from the 70% veteran to pay the SMC veteran.
Exactly. The source of funding is the removal of the VA home loan funding fee exemption for these veterans.
Okay, let's unpack this slowly, because for a lot of listeners, the VA home loan benefit is the crown jewel of their service. It's the American dream part of the package. And one of the biggest perks of having a disability rating is that you don't pay that funding fee.
Correct. Typically, right now, as things stand today, if you have a service-connected disability rating, even just 10%, you are exempt from the funding fee. That fee is a percentage of the loan amount paid directly to the VA to keep the program running. If you are not disabled, you pay it. If you are disabled, it's waived.
And that waiver is huge. Let's put it in real dollars. What does that actually look like?
Well, let's do the math. On a subsequent use of the loan, which is key here, the fee can be upwards of 3.3% depending on your down payment. So let's say you're buying a $400,000 home.
Okay.
That fee would be over $13,000.
$13,000? That's a car. That's a semester of college for your kid.
Right. And currently, if you have any rating, you keep that $13,000 in your pocket. Or more accurately, you don't have to roll it into your mortgage and pay interest on it for 30 years.
So this bill changes that exemption. It doesn't get rid of it completely, does it?
It creates a tiered system based on use, and this is a really critical distinction. If you are a veteran rated 70% or lower, your first use of the VA loan remains exempt. You still get that break on your first house.
Okay, so the veteran getting out of the service today, buying their first place, they're safe.
They're safe for that first purchase. But life happens, right? You get married, you have kids, you get a new job across the country. You need to sell that first house and buy a second one. That is a subsequent use.
And that's where they get you.
That's where the change hits. Under this bill, if you are 70% or lower, you now pay the full funding fee on that second loan, that third loan, any loan after the first.
So if I move because of my job, I get taxed, a $13,000 tax, essentially.
You get hit with the fee. And remember, the fee for subsequent use is higher than for first-time use. It's designed to be steeper, so the system is already set up to make it more expensive, and now this removes the one protection that disabled vets had.
But there was also a point in the sources about refinancing, and this part really scared me because refinancing is usually a defensive move. You're not buying a bigger house, you're just trying to save money.
Yes, and this is where it really stings. Democratic committee members raised this specific concern during the bill's markup. If interest rates drop, let's say they go down to 4%, and you want to refinance,
They know that a herniated L5-S1 disc hurts regardless of whether I took a Vicodin an hour ago.
you would think so, but the VA frames it as a speculative burden. They want to rate what they can see and measure in the room at that exact moment, not what they have to infer based on medical records and patient testimony. They want objective evidence they can observe right now.
Okay, so it's too expensive and it's too hard on the staff. What's reason number 3?
Systemic disruption. This is the classic backlog argument. The VA claims the Ingram ruling risks significant disruption system-wide and would cause major delays in awarding benefits to everyone.
This is the fear tactic, essentially. If you make us do this, the line gets longer for everyone, so you should be against it.
That's how it's framed. It pits the accuracy of one claim against the speed of all claims. They are saying, if we have to pause and reevaluate every musculoskeletal claim to consider an unmedicated state, the whole system grinds to a halt. And nobody wants the backlog to grow. It's a very powerful lever to pull to get public support, or at least acceptance for the reversal.
It is. It's a potent argument.
Yeah.
But then we get to number 4, and this one feels the most philosophical. This is the one that really highlights the fundamental divide.
This is the big one, actual experience. The VA explicitly states that they believe compensation should be based on the disability level the veteran is actually experiencing.
Actually experiencing, define that for me from their perspective.
Their logic is this. If you take a medication and your symptoms are relieved, then at that moment you are not experiencing that higher level of disability. Therefore, paying you for it would be an overpayment. They are incredibly direct about this in the Federal Register. They explicitly mention that the court ruling would cause an overall increase in compensation expenditures for symptoms veterans aren't suffering from because the meds are working.
But that assumes the medication is a perfect fix. It completely ignores side effects. It ignores the cost of the medication. It ignores the fact that I'm now dependent on a pharmaceutical just to function like a normal person. It treats the veteran like a machine. If the machine runs, it doesn't matter how much oil and duct tape you had to pour in to get it started.
Precisely, and that's where the profound disconnect lies. The veteran says, I am disabled because I need this pill to walk. The VA says, well, you can walk, so you aren't that disabled.
It's a fundamental clash of worldviews.
Mm-hmm.
The VA sees the end result. The veteran lives the entire process.
And by labeling the court's decision as an erroneous interpretation of the law, the VA is effectively saying, we know better than the federal judges what the law intended. They are framing this new rule as simply formalizing long-standing policy. They're saying, look, we've always done it this way. The court got it wrong for a minute, so we're putting it in writing so this confusion never happens again.
It's a bold move. You have to give them that. It is a bold administrative power play.
It is, and it connects directly back to Part 1 and the Bryley-Edmonson Act. In both cases, the home loan fees and the medicated standard, we see a tightening of the rules. We see the system looking for ways to save money or streamline processes, often at the expense of the individual veteran's protection or benefit.
Which brings us to the slippery slope argument, because when you see these things happening back to back, a legislative offset here, a regulatory reversal there, you have to ask what's next.
And that is the question keeping advocates up at night. The sources we looked at describe this as a potential cascading effect. If the system can so easily overturn a court ruling that favored veterans and tax disability benefits through home loan fees, are any of the core protections truly safe?
And there is one specific protection that kept coming up in the sources as the potential holy grail of erosion, the benefit of the doubt.
The equipoise rule, yes.
Now, the sources alluded to this as a future target, but they didn't give the full legal definition, so we pulled the context for the listeners. What exactly is the benefit of the doubt rule?
It's found in Title 38 of the U.S. Code, Section 5107B. In plain English, it's the ultimate tiebreaker. The law states that when there is an approximate balance of positive and negative evidence regarding any issue in a claim, any issue at all, the VA must resolve that reasonable doubt in favor of the veteran.
So if the evidence is 50-50, tie goes to the runner.
Tie goes to the veteran. If one doctor says, It's just as likely as not that this was caused by service, and another doctor says it wasn't. The VA is supposed to look at that and say, granted. It's that simple.
That feels like the bedrock of the entire system. It's the institutional acknowledgement that military records get lost, memories fade after combat, and medical science isn't always certain. It says we should err on the side of the person who served.
It is the moral center of the VA claims process. But the fear, which is highlighted in our sources, is that these recent moves are chipping away at that philosophy. The erosion narrative suggests that the system is slowly, quietly moving away from a mindset of, how can we grant this?
To how can we justify denying this to save costs or reduce the backlog?
And it's not that they're going to come out tomorrow and hold a press conference to announce they're repealing 38 U.S.C. Section 5107B.
Oh no, that would be political suicide. You can't do that.
It's the slow drip. It's death by 1,000 cuts. It's redefining approximate balance of evidence to mean something different. It's changing the rating criteria, so it's harder to even get to that 50-50 point in the first place. Things like the Enneagram reversal, where they just change the definitions of the games so the veteran loses the advantage before the tiebreaker even comes into play.
Exactly. Think about it. If you change the rules so that a veteran's medicated state is the legal standard, you have just removed the benefit of the doubt regarding their baseline unmedicated pain. You didn't delete the rule, you just made it irrelevant to that specific, very common situation.
Yeah.
That is how erosion works. It's subtle, it's technical, it happens in the fine print of the Federal Register. But the end result is the same. Denials go up, ratings go down, and the burden on the veteran goes up.
It's chilling when you put it that way. It creates a landscape where the veteran has to be not just a patient, but a lawyer and a lobbyist just to keep what they have.
Which is a perfect segue to the practical application of this deep dive, because we don't want to just leave people terrified or angry. That's not helpful. The sources were very clear that there is a path for action here.
Right? If you are listening to this right now and you're frustrated, whether it's about the cannibalism of the home loan fee or the Enneagram reversal, you are not helpless in this.
No, advocacy makes a difference. The legislative process for the Bryley-Edmonson Act is still moving. It advanced from committee, but it isn't law yet. It hasn't passed the full House or the Senate. And the VA rule, while it is an interim final rule, is still subject to congressional oversight and public pushback after the fact. Congress can step in.
So the tool that was specifically mentioned in our sources is ClaimRaven.
Yes, ClaimRaven.com.
And just to be clear, we aren't sponsored by them or anything, but the sources we reviewed highlight this as the primary hub for this specific advocacy campaign. It seems to be the central rallying point online.
It is. It's a resource hub. They have built a free congressional letter writing tool, and I love tools like this because, let's be honest, writing a formal letter to a Congress member is daunting. You don't know the format, you don't know where to send it, you might not even know who your representative is half the time.
Or you just don't have the time or energy to sit down and draft 3 paragraphs of legislative arguments. You have a job, you have kids.
Exactly. So here is the step-by-step the sources provided on how to use this thing. It's really simple. First, you go to claimraven.com, you enter your personal information, your name, your address, your zip code.
And they need that because Congress filters emails. If you aren't a constituent in their district, your message often just gets deleted. They need to know you vote for them, or at least live where they represent.
Right. Then you enter the specific bill information. In this case, you'd search for the Sherry Bryley and Eric Edmonson Act. The tool allows you to select support or oppose.
Now, this is the tricky part, right? Do I click oppose if I actually want the Gold Star families to get paid more? It feels counterintuitive.
And the tool allows for that nuance. This is key. The sources emphasize speaking up against the offsets. You click oppose, but in your comments you clarify you aren't opposing the benefits for the catastrophically disabled or the Gold Star families. You are opposing the way it's being paid for.
So you can write something like, I strongly support the DIC increase, but I strongly oppose the home loan fee hike for disabled vets as the funding source. Find the money elsewhere.
Precisely. The tool lets you add that custom language to personalize the message. Then you click Generate Letter. It formats it, makes it look professional, finds your specific representatives, and you can email or mail it directly through the platform. It takes maybe 3 minutes.
And the why here is crucial. The source made a really strong point about precedent. This isn't just about this one bill.
They did. The argument is if the community stays silent now, it signals to Washington that this cannibalism model of funding is acceptable. It tells them, sure, go ahead and tax disabled veterans to pay for other veteran programs. Once that door is opened, it is very, very hard to close.
If they can take the home loan exemption today, what's next?
Exactly. Maybe they tax disability compensation directly tomorrow. Maybe they start means testing VA healthcare next year. Advocacy in this case is about drawing a line in the sand and saying this funding model is not okay.
It's about holding the line, not 1 inch, as they say.
That's right. It's about reminding lawmakers that these benefits are part of the contract signed when you enlisted, not a piggy bank they can raid when the budget gets tight.
So we've covered a lot of ground. It's been dense. Let's do a quick recap before we hit our final thought.
Okay, recap time.
The Sherry Bryley and Eric Edmonson Act, good news for catastrophically disabled vets. They get about $833 more a month. And good news for Gold Star families. They get a 1% boost on top of Coca-Cola for 5 years. The bad news, veterans rated 70% or lower will lose their VA home loan fee exemption on any loan after their first one. That's how it's being paid for.
Okay. Number 2.
2. Ingram v. Collins. The court said, rate the veteran on their baseline unmedicated pain. The VA said no, and as of tomorrow, February 17th, they're implementing an interim final rule to mandate rating based on your medicated state.
Number 3.
3. The justification. The VA claims they have to do this because following the court's ruling is too expensive, too burdensome for their staff, would wreck the whole system with delays, and that they should only pay for the pain a veteran is actually experiencing while on their meds.
And finally, number 4.
4. The threat. All of this, taken together, points to a potential slow erosion of the benefit of the doubt doctrine, shifting the entire system's philosophy towards cost saving rather than veteran protection.
It's a heavy briefing, but it's the reality on the ground as of February 2026.
It is.
Now, before we sign off, I want to leave the listener with something to chew on. A final provocative thought to carry into the week. We talked a lot about the medicated standard, this idea that if the pills work, you aren't as disabled.
Right, the actual experience argument.
Here is the question. If the VA rates you based on your medicated state and that results in a lower rating and less money for your family, are they effectively penalizing you for complying with your doctor's treatment plan?
That is the perversity of the incentive structure they're creating. It's a huge problem.
Think about it from the veteran's perspective. If I take the pills my doctor prescribed, my pain goes down, but my disability check also goes down. If I don't take the pills, my pain goes up, I suffer more, but my rating stays high and my family's more financially secure. Does this policy actually incentivize veterans to stop taking their medication, especially right before a C&P exam, or to stop treatment altogether to protect their financial security?
It forces a veteran to make an impossible choice between their physical health and their financial health. And that is a choice no system, especially one designed to care for veterans, should ever force someone to make. It creates a perverse incentive to remain sick, or at least to appear sicker than you are, rather than striving for wellness and recovery.
It seems like a dangerous game of chicken to play with veteran health, and it's one that, as of tomorrow, is the official policy of the land.
It raises a massive ethical question for the medical community, too. Are doctors inside and outside the VA now complicit in reducing a veteran's benefits by prescribing effective care?
If I give you a pill that works, am I taking food off your table? It's messy.
It is incredibly messy, and that is why we do these deep dives, because the headline says, benefits expanded. But the reality is, choices complicated.
Knowledge is the only defense. You have to know the rules of the game to have any chance of playing it.
Thank you for sticking with us through the complexity today. To the learner listening right now, whether you're in a car, at the gym, or sitting at your desk, we know this stuff isn't easy to get through, but understanding it is the first step to protecting what you've earned.
Check the sources on the website if you want to see the specific dates, the bill numbers, or read the full text of the Enneagram reversal in the Federal Register. It's all there. We'll be watching closely what happens tomorrow when that interim final rule officially drops.
Until then, stay informed, stay vigilant, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.
A special thank you to MarketUS.com for furnishing us this information. You can reach them at MarketUS.com or call them at 954-636-3232. Before we go, this deep dive was created by the MarketUS.com team. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. It's right below the subscribe link.